in this country. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this report on the Mediation Committee on Gambling Control Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2023. And I do so cognizant of the fact that we are living in a current environment where 90% of our youth are jobless, where we have protests on a daily basis, we have issues, social issues, mental issues, economic issues that we've not been able to address, that we are now seeking an escape route to live in an utopian world of get rich fast. Mr. Speaker, I was speaking to one of our colleagues here, and she said that one of our pastors in her village in Machakos collected all the offerings in the church, but instead of using it to solve social issues or to do God's work, he ended up gambling. Mr. Speaker, I've skimmed through this report. I've seen the areas which this House had suggested that be deleted in the bill. There's a reason as to why this bill ended up in mediation, and most of them have been retained. Mr. Speaker, this is not the time for us to encourage gambling in this country. I share the same sentiments with my colleagues who have spoken before me in terms of making it punitive for anyone to come and gamble this time. We must, first of all, solve our social issues. Mr. Speaker, gambling companies which make billions of shillings, in fact billions of dollars, target vulnerable, poor societies, people who make 500 shillings a day doing manual jobs, to be told to gamble. Our radio stations, our TV stations are the easiest way to communicate. But instead of our own radio station taking more time to educate the public and carrying out public participation on the dangers of gambling, they are spending more time collecting revenue because they can share the profits. Mr. Speaker, I completely oppose gambling. I oppose this bill. And if my colleagues, if I was to convince you from both sides of the aisle, I would request that we rethink gambling in this country. Mr. Speaker, in America, and I lived in America for so many years, and I'm also a resident, when you go to certain states, gambling is restricted to a particular area where only the rich would be able to drive. In Colorado, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that gambling would go into the Native American reservation, where there's a city which is set aside just for gambling. So it's the rich who will go there. People who have made money until they have, I cannot use that word, but they have money which they can only just use it as they wish. Disposable, not even disposable. There's a word I wanted to use which is not parliamentary, but I cannot use. It's money that you don't really care about. You don't give a hoot on where that money comes from. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge we have in this country right now, which is attributed to gambling, is mental illness. In this House, we passed a law on mental illness and how to deal with it. The laws that we are discussing in this House, and I have no problem with passing legislation, but we have to pass this legislation. We have to discuss this legislation cognizant of what is affecting, what is ailing our society. Right now, there are so many poor people, and the only thing they know how to do is to gamble for them to make money. There are people who will make 1,000 shillings maybe in a week because there are no jobs available. But because they have been lured to a scheme where they can get rich fast, they gamble all that money, and then they end up doing what? Sitting down looking at their kids in a table where they cannot eat. Gambling increases crime in a country, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, we have our children in this parliament. They are looking at us. The same children who come here to listen to us are the same children who we do not understand now because they are from a different generation than the one we come from. that the Gen Zs, we don't understand the language they speak. But instead of us taking the lead and guiding them, we're here discussing about amending laws and saying how good these laws are to gamble. We are not teaching them. I like what, although I don't associate myself with a lot of sentiments of my brother from Tana River, but I like one thing that he said, that to the children, know that we will not always tell you what we go through to be able to wear good suits. Some of us, you might look at us and you think, oh, this person is about 60 years old, and he's merely 20 years old. But it's because they have sleepless nights. They don't sleep. You know, they are always up at night, working. They have 10 jobs. Then you just see them here looking smart, sharp. You know, you don't even know what they're suffering from. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech my colleagues here that it is not time for us to be passing this legislation to be able to support people who are already filthy rich, who are already collecting so much money. It is time for us now to think seriously about how do we end all these problems? How do we reduce crimes? How do we ensure that we have created jobs for our youth so that they don't end up in the streets? You know, these regulations that we're talking about, now in a devolved system of governance, where the Constitution allows county governments to be able to develop laws to collect certain taxes. This, unless there is uniformity across board, you will find some other counties who are culturally sane will say, we will hike and put so much money to be able to save their citizens. But others, because of interest, business interests, they'll make it even very cheap. Pay 5,000 shillings and you can have a gambling license. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I oppose this. I think the exposure to the youth at this particular time, when we are facing a lot of social issues, joblessness, should not be to gambling, but should be to working hard to making money. You know, our country is so good. Our country, you can only compare our country with other developed nations. But sometimes, even if we are passing through, the word is leapfrogging. Even if we leapfrog, sometimes certain things, we cannot just say you are born today and tomorrow you can be able to walk. But because of technology now, there are certain things that we don't need to go through the entire industrial revolution process for us to be able to manage how to do it. But in this country now, we have to remember that that process of industrialization is necessary because we have 47 counties which are completely different. So, Mr. Speaker, I oppose it. I think when you look at across the world, there are countries which are not stable. But those countries are the same countries, I think one of my colleagues who was speaking, are the ones who set up gambling websites. They lure people to gamble there, and then before you realize, in fact, the first one, you are told, hey, take some little money. And you make some little money. You get addicted. You get addicted. Before you realize, you cannot even think straight. I think the only gambling that I can be able to say, it's one that can be allowed in this country is in the stock market. Because at least in the stock market you are seeing there is a company here, Safaricom as an example. Yesterday I was reading somewhere that Airtel has now surpassed Safaricom in terms of their customer base. You know, when you are told invest in those companies, gamble in those companies, there is something where you know you'll be watching your stocks rising on a daily basis or going down, which is life. But where you are putting in and you don't know whether you're going to get money to buy a loaf of bread or even a cup of tea. No. I say no to that. So, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I completely oppose this report, and I oppose anything to do with gambling in this country. at this particular time. I think in the next 10 years, once we've been able to fix our current problems of understanding each generation, is when I'll be able to entertain anything to do with gambling. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I oppose.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion, which is a report of the Mediation Committee from the Senate and the National Assembly that brings to a close a very difficult exercise that we've had, which is to try and rein in and bring control on a very difficult sector. A sector, Mr. Speaker, that has been described very ably by my colleagues. In fact, I agree with them on their prognosis. What I do not agree with them is a final diagnosis, what they eventually consider to be the solution. I've listened to my colleagues, Senator Ledama, Senator Cherruiyot, and while I agree with all the things they have said about gambling, Mr. Speaker, I am afraid that what they are prescribing as a solution might not serve us. We live in very interesting times, Mr. Speaker. You know, in the year 2018, this Parliament, the Senate, sponsored me alongside a few of my colleagues to Colombo, Sri Lanka, for a conference titled Evidence-Based Decision Making. That conference eternally changed my life. And to date, as a lawmaker, if you follow me every afternoon, Mr. Speaker, including yesterday, I follow the evidence before making a final decision. This country, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we make decisions based on political affiliations or feelings sometimes without looking at what the hard facts are telling us. And that's a debate we had here yesterday, for example, where I tried to remind my colleagues who are here, Senator Sifuna, Senator Halwale, Mr. Speaker, that while it is long held that there are counties that are rich and counties that are poor, a better way of looking at places, Mr. Speaker, to consider for affirmative action of any kind, Mr. Speaker, is to break it down to the lowest administrative unit, which is a sub-location, Mr. Speaker, and have a nationwide consideration. Mr. Speaker, this is one such scenario as well. We agree that gambling is a menace that has messed up so many young people, so many families, so many women, because it's not just young men, Mr. Speaker. You will recall that there were times when they had put some slot machines across the country. It was a very interesting spectacle where you'd find women folk in the village at about 4 o'clock trooping from their homes to the center to go and slot in the coins, Mr. Speaker, with the hope that they were going to have their luck on that particular day. I'm afraid, Senator Ledama, that you know when we legislate, we pass laws for things that we know, things that we like, and those that we don't. I understand very little about gambling. In fact, I don't know even how to gamble. But unfortunately, as a lawmaker, Mr. Speaker, I have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the people that I represent. Rift Valley, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, is a mecca of bettors. That's where the hardcore betting population of this country lives. And I know this from very, excuse me, very sound authority, Mr. Speaker, on statistics that I've seen. How many young people wake up trying to get 100 shillings or 50 to place a bet on something with the hope that they'll succeed. And of course, like has been described by many of my colleagues, 90 to 99% of the time they don't succeed, because that's how gambling works. I know that there's something they say, the house never loses, the house always wins. Unfortunately, Senator Ledama, choosing not to regulate this sector is not an option that you want to take. Why? Because even if we made the decision that we want to ban gambling in Kenya, are you aware that 60 to 70% of gambling nowadays has gone online? And they are from sites that don't even exist in Kenya. And those sites, just listen, Senator Ledama, I've done some good research on this. Those sites are operated by very sophisticated software that even if you block their IP address this minute, by the next minute, they have generated a new one. And our young people are following those sites there. So we must think of ways of how we will regulate this sector, because unfortunately, banning or choosing to close our ears and eyes and saying that this is not allowed in our country, Mr. Speaker, is burying our heads in the sand. We live in a digital world. Unless we want to say that we block the internet, perhaps that's the only solution that remains. But as it is today, Mr. Speaker, the unfortunate and the hard reality is that we have got to find ways of bringing order to this sector. Countries all over the world continue to grapple with this. I took time. Actually, the former ambassador to Kenya from the UK. Yes, I don't mind.
Senator Olekina, proceed and inform Senator Cherruiyot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the fact that the majority leader began his debate by giving us a history of what led to his style of debate, evidence-based. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issue of evidence-based, it is imperative to remember that as a country, what we need to remember is that our national identity card number is the one that unites us. There is nothing that stops us, majority leader, from ensuring that when you, for every transaction that you use, either online, to confirm any money, you have to use your identity card number. In fact, nowadays, when someone cons you, so long as you can get the identity card number, you can find a way, and we need to be able to find a way, Mr. Speaker, and this is what I'd like to inform the majority leader, that we can use that identity number to block you from doing any other transaction. In other countries, Mr. Speaker, where gambling is restricted, the moment you try to gamble, you are asked to put your national identity number or your driver's license number. If you go to Australia, before you enter a club, and they know you're not supposed to enter a club when you're not 21 years old, you give out your ID number. In a club, they run it through to make sure whether that ID is legit or not. Nothing stops us from ensuring that this website that the majority leader is talking about, that if you block this IP address, even the IP address is a problem, ensure that everyone, any transaction which is done in the Kenya space, even if the site is in Germany or America, requires you to put in your ID number. And if you put in your ID number, if you're not over 18, or if it is gambling, it blocks. There are ways around it with technology and AI.
Senator Ledama needs to spend time with these young people to understand what I'm telling you. Those sites are not hosted here in Kenya. They are not designed here in Kenya. Therefore, you cannot determine for them what information they require from the people that are placing bets on those particular sites. They make payment using cards, ATM cards, Mr. Speaker, and sometimes on mobile money. Therefore, it is not possible, Mr. Speaker, to do what Senator Ledama is proposing, because I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that these online platforms that are taking away most actually of the gaming revenue, Mr. Speaker, away from this country. And that is another discussion we need to have all together. Because second thing, Mr. Speaker, in the administration of the gambling space, Kenya and Tanzania took two different paths. Kenya decided to treat it as a social ill that needs to be regulated. And therefore they imposed a sin tax on it in the form of an excise duty, meaning that every time you place a bet, Mr. Speaker, there is tax deductible, just trying to dissuade people from participating in it. And that is what has led to a lot of traffic going offline, away from the dominated, away from the regulated online betting spaces in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Tanzania, on the other hand, chose to be facilitative and appreciated and said, while this is a social ill, they treated it like just any other social ill. They say, something must kill a man. For you it is gambling, for another person it is drinking. And therefore they said they treat all of them equally. And as we speak today, the level of business that operated in Kenya has gone down, while in that particular part of the country, it has increased. That is point number two. Mr. Speaker, I do not think that Kenya made the wrong decision. I believe years down the line, Tanzania will regret that particular decision. And therefore, on that one, I agree that as a country, we must find ways of inhibiting the gambling habits of the people that participate in that particular space, Mr. Speaker. But I was just bringing to the attention of the House the evolving space within which this industry operates. That as we try to tax them here to dissuade them from participating in these games, they have actually taken out off and they are now online. As we speak today, Mr. Speaker, therefore, we must find ways of regulating this sector so that what other countries have done, Mr. Speaker, is that they have tried to ensure that there is benefit and any challenges that occur from subsequent months and years of betting to a particular individual are actually sorted by the betting house. You'll find that many of them, for example, and before Senator Ledama rose to inform me, I was giving the example of a piece of legislation that was shared to me by one of the interns at the UK embassy about a year or two ago, by the time we were beginning this debate. They say that they have actually forced all gambling entities, so long as you provide gambling activities in the country, be it online or in the form of a casino, Mr. Speaker, to keep a record of the customers. And they share. And there is a trend they are able to trace. If they find that you are getting to levels close to addiction and you're becoming dependent on it while it's just supposed to be a sport, Mr. Speaker, they actually call you and they offer counseling services to you, mandatory by law. That's the kind of work that we need to demand from the firms that operate gambling activities in this country. That they must look after their customers. That if they notice that you are actually addicted, Mr. Speaker, they provide support services to you as a customer. That needs to be provided by this authority. That's why I want to persuade my colleagues that turning our backs on our countrymen and women that are struggling with this menace, Mr. Speaker, is not an act of leadership. It will be an act of cowardice on our part. While we may not agree with their choices, Mr. Speaker, we pass law in this house for the people that we agree with and those that we don't agree with, Mr. Speaker. I say that I don't know even how to gamble. I have never gambled in my life, Mr. Speaker. But I am fully aware that so many of the young people that vote for me to come to this house, Mr. Speaker, battle with gambling addictions, for example. I must provide a regulatory framework for them to have an entity that will look straight into the eye of these betting firms and tell them that look after your customers. Ensure that you provide support services to them if they get to addiction levels, Mr. Speaker. The CSR support that Senator Cherruiyot was talking about, Mr. Speaker, it must be provided so that you counterbalance between the force of good and evil in the society. So that at the end of the day, if there are challenges that they have brought about in the society, how have they counterbalanced it? By providing, for example, everybody knows that the biggest contributors in this day and age in the sporting world are actually these betting firms. Across the globe, Mr. Speaker, they sponsor the biggest of sporting franchises out there, Mr. Speaker. They develop gymnasiums, stadia, Mr. Speaker, because of the realization that people's choices, Mr. Speaker, vary from one to the other. Therefore, I want to urge my colleagues that while looking at this particular topic, Mr. Speaker, that let us be mindful of the fact that this is not a simple decision that you can just make and say, we choose to look away. What we need to is first, you need to have an authority. I think, I don't know what it is called, the current regulator, BCLB or something. I think it's just a department in one of the offices here. You need an authority that has representation from almost all spheres of society, Mr. Speaker, including even religious institutions. Those who will have the courage to sit in that particular board, Mr. Speaker. So that when you set the tough conditions, Mr. Speaker, the firms live by the rules, they play by the rules, and we protect many citizens that continue to battle and struggle in this particular space. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge colleagues that have taken time to read through this report. I appreciate that it has been a protracted battle between the Senate and the National Assembly. Their perspective of things, Mr. Speaker, there are many things we had included, including taxes that we proposed. If you remember, we had actually proposed something akin to a sin tax to ensure that we dissuade young people. But unfortunately, when these people went to the mediation, it was dropped, because I know National Assembly will never agree to any tax proposition coming from the Senate. Of course, the matter was not even given a chance. I knew that proposition, Mr. Speaker, had the chance of a snowball in hell the minute he left this house, so long as he was going to get to the National Assembly. Because they don't view this for what it is. It is a broader conversation about what is the space of Senate with regards to taxation and so on and so forth. And therefore, we lost it at that. My thinking, because I listened to, I don't know who it was, one of the members who moved that proposal on taxation, Mr. Speaker, was actually to sort that issue that I had proposed, or that I had spoken to earlier, between how we chose to administer betting and the difference in approach we took between us and Tanzania, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, since that was lost in the mediation, I concede, Mr. Speaker, because we must be able to achieve the greater good, then we'll tie in the small ends eventually when we have the opportunity. So I want to request that we conclude on this business today, Mr. Speaker, if possible, so that when we get the opportunity to have a regulatory authority, then we shall invite them to this house and now ask the hard questions, Mr. Speaker. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, just maybe, that there are technological solutions that are available to these companies that are running betting, Mr. Speaker, online, and don't have presence in Kenya. They don't pay taxes in this country, Mr. Speaker. I know that there is a lot of ways in which we can find them. I know, for example, Senator Ledama, because earlier on you had asked me what might be the solution, is that you can force their bookmakers, because all these online betting firms rely on bookmakers that are actually regulated in countries that have even stronger regulations in this space than the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, to give us the odds so that you're able to establish how many transactions they made out of this country and what it is that they paid. Because now in this law, thanks to the mediated version of the report, even if we have no ways of finding and establishing, we shall continue to demand of them until such a time that we catch up with you. You may be domiciled out of a country that a tax haven somewhere that Kenya has no relationship with, but somehow, somewhere, the long arm of the law, when it eventually catches up with you, then you will pay into the Republic of Kenya. Therefore, I appreciate that proposition that has come from this committee to tax even those that are participating in the online space and have no physical space in offices in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. You may not have the chance to recover anything from them at this point, but somehow, somewhere, one day, one time, Mr. Speaker, you will find the opportunity. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is to ask our colleagues, Mr. Speaker, to treat this matter with the urgency that is needed. Because listening to those that are opposed and supporting this, there's one point that we all agree, that this is a space that needs our urgent attention as policy makers, Mr. Speaker. So that we find a way. Senator Ledama is proposing that we create a city akin to Las Vegas, or the one for China is called what? Macau. But that will only work for those that operate on casinos, Mr. Speaker. What about those that participate on these in the online space? What will you do to them? Like I have said, there is no way of stopping them, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to urge Senator Ledama that let's create the authority first, then the rest follows. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support and thank the colleagues that did a lot of work in bringing this report before the House. I thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. And it is good that you declared you've never participated in gambling. But I'm just wondering, is sending fair gamble?
Mr. Speaker, because you have asked me a question, yeah, sending fare is a gamble, especially for a young man like Eddie, Mr. Speaker. Because chances are she may come or not come. That is a gamble. It has odds, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech.